We all set to go? Okay. All right, we're going to call the Rehab and Social Services Senate Gaming Subcommittee, General Laws, different day. General Laws Gaming Subcommittee to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Ruff? Here. Senator Eben? Senator Eben, I see you in the Zoom room. Senator Donovan? Senator Mason? I see Senator Mason in the Zoom room as well. Senator Boysko? I also see Senator Pillion, Senator Bell. Here. Senator Kagan's also in the Zoom room. Senator McPike.
Here. All right, thank you very much. So as we're going to go through the agenda, we're going to follow up on some items from our first meeting, which did an overview of Senate Bill 1407, as well as some of the data. I'm going to give Senator Bell an opportunity to respond to some of the questions that our committee had as a follow-up to that meeting and the discussion that we undertook during that time. Following that, we're going to take public comment. And so the way we'll order the agenda is we're going to take some follow-up from our first meeting in terms of public comment for those who may have concerns about the legislation, as well as those who are online. And then we'll follow up with those who may be in support of the legislation to give some better information to the committee for consideration, just to sort of lay out the agenda and how we plan to tackle the agenda today, followed by committee discussion based on the information received from the public today. So with that, I'm going to turn over the floor to Senator Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we think the people online can hear us yet, or?
Not yet, sir.
Do you want to, Mr. Chairman, you want to proceed, or would we think that's?
Yeah, if we can stand down for a moment and stand at ease until we make sure we resolve any technical issues, because there's also likely the public also may be having some difficulties. Okay. The committee will stand at ease until we work out some technical issues. Yeah, sure. So looks like our staff may have resolved it, but if we can get one of our senators from the committee that are online on Zoom to on-mic and make sure that we can hear you and you can hear us.
We can hear you now, Mr. Chairman.
We can hear you.
Great. Thank you, Senator Eben. All right. We're going to go ahead and come back to order. And Senator Bell, go ahead and address some of the committee's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the committee members, if we haven't emailed these answers out to you, we will. But want to provide the answers to the 4 questions that were posed at the last committee meeting. Question 1, the video gaming terminals, or VGTs, what was the comparison between VGTs and gray game revenue projections for the Commonwealth? The revenue projections we did, the gray games were at $131 million. We project VGTs at $700+ million. The best projection we used on this is, frankly, with the state of Illinois. Chicago is not included in the VGTs there. You take out Chicago, it's about an 8 million population, the same as Virginia, so we consider that a pretty good comparison. And this is using skill game reports, public data, and also the Illinois Commission on Wagering and the Government Forecasting Accountability. So that answers that question. 700 million plus addressable market in comparison. Number 2, the question was how many potential gaming locations are there in Virginia? Obviously, the answer could be based on what was approved. I can tell you models that have been looked at in other states would be restaurants, if it could provide a physical separation with perhaps bars, convenience stores, and truck stops. Truck stops, what some states have done is have a large and small operation based either on the physical size of the truck stop or how many gallons of fuel they sold per month. If you use those kind of numbers and look at it, the stats from Union Gaming and Analytics, which is actually the number one expert on this type of analysis for government private investment. And we also looked at Virginia alcohol beverage control, assuming a ABC liquor license would be required. The answer to that question is 12,772, which seems very precise, but based on current data, I think we're safer to say it's somewhere above 12,000, potentially 13,000 potential locations for video gaming terminals in Virginia. The third question is how many other states have video gaming terminals and casinos both operating? The answer is 8 states currently have this operation as of today. Question 4, the potential impact of video gaming terminals on other gaming revenues. And I will say that this question, some of the data, again, using Union Gaming and other sources, we have to say that some of the data is in a COVID environment, and that has dramatically had an impact on in-person gaming at casinos, particularly where people are at table games in close proximity, touching chips and other things, which could pose a risk. So there's a bit of a risk on that data, but the real tax revenue question, I think, is or the potential impact, I think should be more of a different question. And what is the impact for revenue for Virginia? And the impact is tremendous. The early data shows that depending on the casino and the distance, there could be some connection, but frankly, there hasn't been a real strong connection to show. The more the data leads you that there's different markets here. And part of an ancillary question on that is lottery sales. In Illinois, using that as an example, it's actually lottery sales have gone up since video gaming has been present. So it's actually had a positive impact. There could be other things, size of prize pools, et cetera, that can impact that, I should point out. But the instant games have actually gone up in revenue since video gaming terminals have come into play. The draw games, their revenue has pretty much stayed at the same level. So if anything, a positive impact for lottery sales. With that, Mr. Chairman, these are the 4 questions that were asked, and this information, again, will be made available to committee members.
Thank you, Senator Bell. Follow-up questions from committee members. Any online? Okay. Thank you, Senator Bell, for following up with some of the committee's questions. It's helpful to gather some data. We're going to start and move on to our second part of our agenda today, which is to work through our public comment period. We have a number of folks here in person as well as online. I'd like to start, again, we're going to start with those who may have concerns in regards to the Senate bill and some of the constructs around it. And if we could have those online that would like to speak in opposition or some concern, please raise your hands now. Okay. We're going to start with Mr. Michael Soul.
Mr. Chair, I am moving him into the room now. Mr. Soul, you're welcome to share your presentation and begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So my understanding is you're going to drive the presentation from that end? Is that correct?
I can. One moment, please, Mr. Soul.
Well, no, I can share. I just misheard you. I
Oh.
apologize.
Yeah, by all means, please proceed.
How's that?
Looks good, Mr. Soul.
Thank you. First of all, thank you to the committee chair and members for having me today. I'm here representing the Innovation Group. It's the same company that you'll may recall was involved in the study for GLAT several years back, 2019. And I'm here to not necessarily to speak against VGTs. We look at the industry methodologically as having many different components. They behave different ways in different areas, but really with a focus on Virginia as we have experienced it in the research that we've done. This slide is really just to demonstrate that we have a well-rounded view of the industry in terms of market and forecasting, but also operations, marketing, and finance. On this slide, I'd just like to show you the areas. If you see scenarios 1 through 8, these are the areas that we evaluated for JLARC and for the Commonwealth. So you can see the forms of gaming here are the HHR machines, the bricks and mortar land casinos, online casinos, and sports betting, and then mobile sports betting as an independent form of sports betting from sports betting at facilities. This study, upon which the legislation was enacted, did not contemplate the addition of VGTs. So we wanted to make sure it was clear that our work, our study, did not include that impact, and that would be a separate body of work, which I think at some point might be enacted. On the next slide, I'm just going to kind of where Senator Bell was also on comp markets. We look at what's happened in other markets, and we also agree that Illinois is a good market as a base market to look at what impacts might look like for VGTs should they be added. And keeping in mind, in Illinois, the casino industry preceded the VGT industry. And the first point that we'll make is that there is a clear crossover. Again, in Chicago, there are no VGTs, and a few other local communities have also excluded them. Still, there are almost 39,000 VGTs in the state in 7,000 different establishments with liquor licenses. So 26% between 2012 and 2019 is what has happened to slot revenue in Illinois, which I'm going to show you in a more detailed breakdown in a moment. But we measure through 2019 because of the impact of COVID. The industry has actually recovered pretty well. It's been pretty robust, particularly in local markets. But 2019 is just a very clean number, clean year to look at. If you look at this chart, it basically shows in graphic form, which I'll show you in a tabular form in a moment, just the pace of the VGT count increasing and the slot revenue count decreasing. This shouldn't be surprising. Excuse me. It's essentially an inverse relationship. So you can see as the VGTs have increased since 2014 after the initial spike by 13% a year, and we're now at that number of 38,000. And this really demonstrates the crossover effect. So if you look at Peoria and Springfield, are two different cities in Illinois that we have looked at. And if you look at the average win per unit for the VGTs, they perform better where there's no casino. So that additional revenue is going somewhere. And so, you know, essentially, you can also look at the concentration of VGTs in a market and what the slot impact has been. So on the bottom chart here, you can see that in Des Plaines, which is really close to Chicago where there are not VGTs, and in Des Plaines itself was a local option out of VGTs, there's been a 2.7% decline in slot revenue over the measured period. So there is some leakage. But in Paradise, which is in Peoria, for example, slot revenue is down 41%. And kind of an in-between market in Hollywood. Hollywood and Harrah's properties in Joliet, those two properties together are down about 20%. Next slide just organizes that data that I had on the graph before by year, and you can see the cumulative change. The first couple of years, 2013 through in 2014, were a more dramatic increase on slot revenue. But by 2019, it was 26%. If we measured it today on a stabilized basis, it will have climbed a little bit higher. So we've done work for the Pennsylvania, another Commonwealth over the years on gaming, impact of table games, impact of VGTs, and most recently for the association in Pennsylvania. But when we look at the forecast of the Illinois effect on Pennsylvania, so if we superimpose it and you look just across the bottom of this chart, you'll see that our overall slot forecast for 2029 was meant to be in the $2.8 billion range. And it is now about 830 to 930 million lighter. That cannibalization is very close to the numbers being generated by VGTs. So in a market that's not growing tremendously, a lot of cannibalization would be expected. Next slide, sorry. Next slide is it's pretty specific to Pennsylvania. This is a projection of how the different local recipients of funding would be affected by the addition of VGTs. So this just happens to be how their legislation is configured. But the property tax decrease would be about 300 million. Some of the other funds at the local area would be affected. About 1,000 jobs would be put at risk. And jobs are, interesting because VGTs don't replace much in the way of jobs. They do replace fiscal revenue, but they don't replace employment. And then lottery sales are at risk. I know that the senator had referenced that lottery sales were up overall. When we look at lottery sales, we tend to adjust out some of the extra factors that he referenced. I doubt our methodology is particularly different than Union Gaming or any of our other competitors. But the inputs and the assumptions are really where the differences are. This is about capital investment. If you look, the casino investment in Illinois had been limited since Rivers, one of the most recent openings, opened in 2011. By contrast, in Indiana, you saw a lot more spending between 2013 and 2019. And we believe this lack of additional expansion did have to do with the introduction of VGTs. The other thing to look at here, just particularly because they report it, is kind of the impact on local businesses and minority and women-owned businesses. So, this is important in the sense that you haven't developed casinos in Virginia yet. So the plans in place right now don't contemplate that extra competition. And that really stretches from Bristol all the way through Danville, all the way back over to Richmond. No one is planning a capital budget right now that anticipates having to be competing against VGTs, and their bankers are not anticipating that budget. So I'll come back to that in a minute, but I think that's an important consideration. And I think just some observations to wrap it up. Again, we haven't produced a VGT impact analysis on Virginia. From this presentation, it looks like we would, be starting with the Illinois impacts and working backwards, but every market's different. Would not be exactly the same impact. We do think there'd be a dramatic decrease in slot revenue compared to our JLARC findings, reduced job creation as a result of less capital spending and smaller operations. Like we discussed, reduced capital spent, reduction in local fiscal benefits depending on how general fund versus local revenue is distributed. Have not tracked that very closely. And then potential difficulty in financing the new forms under development. It would really reshuffle that deck. And that was really all we had prepared formally today. Of course, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'll leave the presentation up in case anyone wants me to revisit any of the slides.
Thank you, Mr. Soul. Questions from committee members?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bell.
I have a couple of questions. First question, who is the innovation group representing here today?
We're not being paid by anybody today. I'm here representing myself as the company that essentially studied how gaming should be introduced in Virginia.
Question, if you go to, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On slide 5, the revenue you're talking about is revenue to casinos, but net revenue to the state actually went up, correct?
Yes, net revenue to the state went up. It was just not backed by jobs or any economic development. So for a fiscal grab, VGTs fulfill that.
Bengal.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator.
when you say not backed up by jobs, doesn't it take jobs to operate video gaming terminals, install video gaming terminals, and for the establishments that are impacted?
Well, the number of jobs is a fraction for each facility. So if you have a bartender who's also cashing out machines, it's 30% of their. It takes a lot of FTEs, a lot of parts of jobs to equal the number of jobs that are lost. It's not. There's no real comparison.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Bill.
Question, in your analysis, when you looked at that, did you factor in Virginia the gray machines competition, or did you just, when you were mentioning that VGTs were not factored in, were gray machines factored in?
So gray machines are obviously an important topic. They've grappled with it and really addressed it pretty well in Illinois. In Virginia, we calibrate against a baseline. So the impact of gray machines is in our forecasts in terms of the penetration rates that we use.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions of committee members for Mr. Soul? Anybody online? Okay, I see the heads nodding no. So thank you very much, Mr. Soul, for your presentation. We will check with the clerk if there's anyone online that also may have their hand up that may have concerns and would like to speak at this point. Okay, Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, I'm promoting you to a panelist presently. You're very welcome to begin your testimony whenever you're ready.
All right, we were going to come back to Mr. Johnson, should he come back online. I'm going to open up to those members who are here physically present in the public to come up and state your name, provide your comments to the committee if you should do so. Please limit your comments to roughly 2 minutes. Would be helpful just on the number of people who are here. So those who have opposition to the proposed legislation, please come first. And then those who are in support, I will call you up separately.
At this time, I'd like to ask members of the audience who would like to speak in opposition to please line up in front of the lectern.
All right, we'll move on to the second grouping of those who are in support of the legislation.
Good afternoon. My name is Izzadin Al-Shami. I'm the president of the Yemeni American Association of Virginia. Our association holds more than 80 stores under our associations, about 500 people that works across Virginia. We are actually in support of Senator Bill proposal to bring the regulated machines back to Virginia. VGT will bring much more needed revenues and capital improvement to many small businesses like ours. COVID-19 has impacted our businesses significantly, for the past 2 years, and the machines basically were the lifeline that actually supported and helped, keep our businesses and most importantly, keep the workers, not go out of the stores and go in unemployment, and that was a big factor of keeping a lot of people in our stores in business. The financial safeguard proposed, will actually ensure that all parties involved, including ourselves, and our customers, don't have a fair share. Now, what we would like to have a fair share, in the market, and we would like to be treated fairly. And then when it comes to VGT versus the big casinos, we just like frontline soldiers. We worked every day through the pandemic, and we kept our stores open, and we kept because of the people that worked in there. And we should not be treated differently. We don't have big advocates. We don't have big money to throw everywhere, so people could speak for us and advocate for us. But the vast majority over here are all small business owners. We are actually the fabric of Virginia. We want it to be just as much fair as everybody else. Now, if you allowed me, there's a couple of more, Mr. Soul, he spoke about the revenues. We talk about 14,000 stores all over Virginia. We talk about 14,000 jobs actually in Virginia. He's talking about 2,000 jobs that is going to be from, the casinos. Just as soon as we lost the machines in July, we actually lost about 4,000 to 3,000 people that they used to work in convenience stores and gas stations and bars, and actually some places actually closed down. I don't know where he gets his, points, but we are the front line. Everybody over here actually in the front line. I speak for everyone who suffers, and I speak for myself too. I suffer because of that. Revenue went down 20 to 30%, and we keep the money in Virginia. That's the most important thing. The money stays in Virginia. We build in Virginia. We buy houses in Virginia. We pay tuitions for our kids in Virginia. The money from casino does not stay in Virginia. He's talking about 2,000 jobs and maybe a loss of 1,000. Why can't we talk about 4,000 people? Why can't we talk about 5,000 people? They lose their jobs already and they lose their livelihood. And there's no comparison between 1,000 to 4.
Thank you. I've afforded a little bit more time than the 2 minutes, but
I appreciate that.
But you spent time here today to provide comments. Are you speaking on behalf of an entire association?
I'm speaking about 80 stores.
Okay.
They have over 500 people working in there. And that's a big deal. For us, it's a big deal. We are minority, from black, from women, from, Middle Easterns, from Indians, from Americans. All of us, we suffer because of we want the casinos. But we paid. My lottery actually went up. And we speak about, about these things every month. The lottery sales actually went up because people, they sit, they play scratch-off tickets. They have $5. Oh, let me get a lottery ticket. So I don't know where they get the statistics that the lottery is going to go down. I don't know where he gets the statistics that 1,000 jobs compared to 5,000 jobs is actually fair.
Thanks.
So I speak to you, and to your humanity and to your heart. Do not let these big statistics actually take the small man out of the business.
We appreciate your advocacy. I want to make sure we also have time for others today to speak.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Bell.
Just to receive just a comment for the clerk that some people are saying they're having a hard time with the audio. So I don't know if you could double check to make sure that everything is working correctly. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask anyone else who would like to speak to the bill to please approach the lectern.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Ann Lilly, and I'm the VP of Marketing and Merchandising for GPM Investments. We're headquartered here in Richmond. I'm really grateful to be here. I'm a lifelong Virginian. My family was, my generations of my family were born and raised here as well, and my extended family still lives here. I'm very nervous. I'm sorry.
You're doing fine. So thank you for spending time and joining us today.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here to thank people like you who make this a great state. I mean, we've got a great economy. We've got a healthcare system that works. My 3 children have benefited from the public education that we have here. And we've got a beautiful state, and I'm so thankful to be a part of it. But back to the real reason why I'm here is because GPM, we operate about 190 stores in Virginia, and we employ over 1,700 people. As you consider regulating gaming, I'm here to support a fair and accessible environment to gaming. At GPM, we've had the opportunity to participate in gaming in Illinois, as we've already heard about, and then in Virginia for the year that just ended this summer. Our priority at GPM is around prioritizing acting ethically, meeting all legal standards, and ensuring long-term sustainability of our operations. We have and we never will operate in gaming unless it is regulated. And this is why we stopped and we turned off our machines on June 30th of this year. We have been made aware of other competitors who are still operating their machines. And we believe that this will continue and even proliferate as time goes on. And it's our opinion that these operators will continue to flout the law, rely on statutory confusion, and avoid any type of legal action, while we sit on the sidelines at a competitive disadvantage. Contrary, there is some regulated gaming that is getting action, right? We've got the casinos, we've got the addition of new locations for places like Rosie's. In fact, when I was telling my 14-year-old daughter that I was coming here, to meet with you. And she didn't know we had gaming in our stores. She didn't know what it was. She said, is that what we saw at the 7-Eleven? We were going to Susu's? And I said, yes. And she said, aren't they letting casinos come here, Mommy? How is that fair? And this is a 14-year-old girl who really cares nothing more than, or I thought, about what she's going to wear to school tomorrow or the politics around leaving somebody unread in Snapchat, right? This is a future voter, and I was really impressed by her conclusion. To say that companies like the casinos or others would benefit or we would cannibalize their revenue is really kind of unfair. Isn't that the principle upon which the free market was built? I mean, shouldn't everybody be allowed a fair chance to play? Anyway, I'm here just to ask that we, for the sake of reasonable public policy, that you vote to allow for legislation to support regulated gaming, especially in the route gaming that we would represent the convenience store industry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
You did fantastic, so you're good. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask anyone else who'd like to speak to the bill to please line up behind the lectern. We'd like to get an eye on how many folks here would like to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Dalton, and I am corporate counsel with Kiro Group. We are a gaming consultant, and one of our customers is GPM, along with many other national retail chains. Our focus is to help our customers navigate the regulatory framework and help them build a successful gaming program as regulated route gaming expands to more and more states. Currently, we have a presence in Illinois, Georgia, Pennsylvania, South Dakota, Nevada, and here in Virginia. We are also working closely with other states as they seriously consider regulating gaming, especially given the fact that installed base of unregulated gaming is growing and growing. In our opinion, unregulated electronic video games should be licensed, taxed, and subject to regulation. By doing so, the Commonwealth and the consumer will both benefit. As you consider regulating gaming, we are happy to offer any type of our expertise and answer questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Eric Fly, representing Davis Oil Company and Davis Travel Centers. Just want to quickly point out, as far as what y'all refer to as truck stops, we like to call them travel centers. It's more sophisticated that way. But gaming has been part of the travel center industry here in Virginia, especially in rural. Remember, most of the truck stops or travel centers we have are in rural parts of the state. And gaming has been part of the marketing plan for these truck stops since 1980. We had electronic gaming 7 years before the lottery was invented. So the truck stops or travel centers are not affecting the lottery whatsoever. Also on the HHRs, there's been considerable conversation about how these games might hurt Rosie's and the other HHRs that are about the Commonwealth. Well, truck drivers don't have access to these facilities. They only have access to truck stops. They can't go downtown and visit these facilities. Same thing with the casinos. Truckers do not have access to casinos. They're not going to be allowed to go in and participate. Truck drivers come into a truck stop for a lot of different reasons, but mainly for, as you know, federal law requires them to stop, pull over. They have to take a rest. They come in, they fuel, they feed themselves, they shower, then they have downtime. Part of that downtime is gaming. Part of that downtime is visiting the doctor's office. Most independent truck stops now have doctor's offices in the facilities to treat the truck drivers. And then they go and exercise. So gaming has been a very valuable part of the truck stop industry, and having it taken away has dramatically hurt us. 10% of the employment in the travel centers disappeared when the games disappeared. So it does have an impact on jobs, regardless of what the gentleman told you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, could the gentleman, I have a question for the gentleman?
Sure, Eric.
The 10% of the jobs, what kind of number are we looking at, I mean, for the job impact?
Well, a typical mid-size travel center is about 300 people. So, 30 to 40 employees are in emphasize these are rural jobs. These are areas in rural areas, Sussex County, Brunswick County, and those jobs are hard to come by. And so we see 30 or 40 jobs disappear when the games disappear of that. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. My name is Steve Burrill, and I have the privilege of representing the VGT Coalition of Virginia, and we are very much in support of Senator Bell's bill. Before I introduce two guests who are here to speak on behalf of the bill, I'd like to just say that I think, and I would commend to the subcommittee, the comments that Senator Bell made earlier. The real question for this subcommittee to concentrate on is not what impact VGTs might have on gaming in Virginia. It's what impact would VGTs have on the revenue to the Commonwealth of Virginia and the benefits thereof. I think an earlier speaker said that he looked to Illinois for guidance. Well, we did too, because in Virginia it's hard to compare VGTs to casinos because neither casinos nor VGTs exist in Virginia. So you're comparing two projections against one another with no constant. But Illinois is. They've been in the casino business since before 2012, and they have been in a robust VGT market since 2012. And if you look at the charts that Senator Bell will disseminate, what you'll see is that VGTs have increased the revenue somewhere between 36 and 50% from 2012 to 2021, and that's a lot of money. So with that, I have two, well, let me first say this. Our coalition is made up of 5 representatives. One is Golden Entertainment. They are a publicly traded company out of Las Vegas. They own and operate 10 casinos, 9 in Nevada. They're also the largest distributor of video gaming in Nevada and the largest in the country. The fact that they have such a large presence of both in Nevada seriously reflects on the impact that VGTs would have here in Virginia on casinos that are coming.
So, Mr. Rowe, before you introduce others, I would like to offer and extend to my Senate colleague, Senator Morrissey, the opportunity to speak if he so chooses.
I think he wants to be last.
Okay. Just wanted to offer that to a colleague. And so, thank you, Mr. Brock. Go ahead.
Thank you. I thought of that, but I think he was strategically placed. So I want to defer to him to be last. So you have Golden Entertainment, major player in the casino business and probably the most robust gambling and gaming venue in the United States, Las Vegas. We have 2 other members who are manufacturers of VGTs. They are family-owned, privately held businesses that have been in business for over 80 years. One out of Boston, one out of the Chicago area. And then here with me today are 2 gaming distributors from Illinois. They are the 2 largest distributors from Illinois. The first is Accel, A-C-C-E-L. They're represented by Mike Galecka, who's been with them since his family created the business. And then following him will be Matt Hortenstein, who is a representative of J&J Venture, and they are also a very large distributor of games. So they have come here to talk to you about the reason they are interested in making a significant financial investment in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Michael Galetka. I'm from Accel Entertainment. I had a few things I wanted to talk about, but considering the innovative group discussion earlier, one of the things that was key to his presentation was his belief that VGTs don't replace employment, that their funds that go to the state are not backed up by jobs and economic improvement. And I would say, in the most general terms, the structure that we're contemplating here is 1/3 to the state, 1/3 to small businesses. So Virginia's small businesses will gain the exact same benefits that the state will. So it's a huge amount of money. If we're talking $700 million, we're talking a lot of money. If we're talking about the state of Illinois, the average location in the state of Illinois generates almost $100,000 from VGTs. That's not something that can be turned away. And that's true economic improvement for rural areas and for all small businesses throughout the state. And if in Illinois there's over 7,500 businesses that are participating in this industry, and if you assume that even one employee was added as a result of that $100,000, I mean, that's 7,500 employees right there. And his suggestion was 1,000 employees would be lost by the casinos. I can tell you that the business that I'm a part of today has almost 1,000 employees itself. And we serve a huge portion of locations. And I know that without a bill like this, an industry like this, that businesses like theirs will not only lose employees, but they will go out of business, which it will be huge. Again, like I said, in this structure, companies like mine will come in and put in a $175,000 to $200,000 capital improvement into each and every location with those machines, the cash that is needed to run those machines and such. So that's capital that's being put into businesses throughout the entire Commonwealth, and that shouldn't be looked askew at. That's real improvements to real people. It creates enormous wealth within the Commonwealth. Businesses that have no value now have a value because there's an additional revenue source that people want to be a part of. I'm a living proof of that. I started in a small family business, and because of this industry, I've been able to support my entire family and my extended family. So I believe that video gaming, to keep it short, is a great improvement. Businesses like ours are yearning to come in and put capital into the Commonwealth, its people, and its businesses. Our employees are highly trained. They will be job trained for the proper thing. They're good business, they're good wages, including 401ks, health insurance, and family leave. So all the things that we want of good businesses coming into the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Evan.
Yeah, if I could ask the speaker to just answer a few questions.
Sure.
Sure.
The first, when you refer to the capital improvement, beyond the cost of or the value of the machines themselves, what do you mean by the capital improvement?
Well, I think so depending on how the legislation goes, in some jurisdictions, we are allowed to help to improve the gaming area within that location. So that may mean improvement of the electronics, the electric service there, and help to build out walls of separation and things like that. But I think that that's a piece of it. It's also the cash that's involved in the current, or what we've known in the past with skill games that are unregulated, though the payouts are made from behind the bar, from behind the counter. That means that they have thousands of dollars sitting behind the counter that they need in order to make payouts. In this business structure, the terminal operator, someone like myself, is the one who supplies that cash, and now it's not behind the counter. It's in what's called a redemption terminal. It looks like an ATM, but it allows people to cash out with a voucher, walk over to the redemption terminal, put the voucher into the redemption terminal, and receive the cash. What that does is not only allows for a fully regulated cycle, but more importantly, it creates a far more safer environment for employees of the location. You know, people don't know that they have $10,000 sitting behind the bar. And on top of that, the equipment itself is, frankly, between $100,000 and $175,000 just for that equipment. And right or wrong, that's capitalization that will generate that kind of revenue for the location. Also, frankly, a regulated version of what has happened in the past gives small businesses the opportunity to know that they are in business with the state and they will wake up the next day and those machines will still be there, which allows them to put their own money into their own business in order to improve it.
Thank you. Any follow-up
question?
Yes.
Senator Evan.
I wanted to ask the witness a little bit about the payout. We heard in another joint subcommittee a few weeks ago about the payout from machines in so-called social quarters of fraternal organizations. And I'm wondering, are those a higher payout? Because I believe you mentioned that 1/3 goes to the state, 1/3 to small business, and I assume the other third is to the payout. Because we heard, I think, that they have as much as 80 or 90% payout in the social quarters. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, let me just explain my 1/3. So the money in minus the money that is paid out would be what is the term in a lot of these reports is net terminal income. So that's what you actually have made. You may put $100 in, you get 90 out, it's actually $10. So of the money that is made with these machines, 1/3 of it goes to the state, 1/3 goes to the location, and the other third goes to businesses like myself who are the ones who capitalize and bring the equipment in, service the equipment, collect the equipment, are the in-between between the Commonwealth and that location for regulatory purposes and such like that. So that's the third, a third, and a third aspect of what is made there. The machine, our legislation requires a minimum win of 85%. The reality on the street in Illinois is that it's about 92%. So I'm not sure the numbers that the charitables gave you, but 92% is about what, so for every dollar bet, you can expect to lose 8 cents. Now it's a random number generator, so it goes up and down, and you may win some hands and lose a lot somewhere else, or win a jackpot, but the average, and you know because it's a random number generator that in the long term, and you can look this up on Illinois revenue reports, and you'll see they have the numbers, and it amounts to about a 92 point, it fluctuates, percent win. Give back to the player for every spin.
Okay, thank you. So then my takeaway is that the odds of winning or what you win is comparable, whether it's in a social quarters gaming situation for charity or whether it's in a BGT terminal in a small business.
I mean, to be truthful with you, I don't know what their win percentage is, but if you said it was in the high 80s, then I would say that we are giving more back than they are, but I would say that in the end, our machines will generate more revenue.
He's asking about VGTs in charitable.
Thank you.
No. Thank you very much. We'll appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Matt Hortenstein. I serve as general counsel to J&J Ventures Gaming, which is one of the largest terminal operators in the state of Illinois. We're also a family-owned business, been there 90 years, third generation. First, with respect to some of the comments relative to our casino competitors, there is plenty of room in the marketplace for us all to coexist. We can compete together, and we can all be successful. And Illinois is a great model of that. We have one of the most robust casino markets with 10 concurrent casinos. We have a very robust video gaming, distributed gaming industry as well. And we can both coexist. In point of fact, over the next 2 or 3 years, there will probably be built another 2 or 3 casinos in the state of Illinois. If we were cannibalizing them so terribly, they wouldn't be building 2 or 3 more. No casinos closed down in Illinois as a result of the robust competition that we have. Competition is a good thing. In addition to that, I think it's important to note that municipalities also benefit from this structure. In Illinois, of that $700 million of state revenue that was generated, about 5% of that goes to municipalities. That's about $35 million. That is spread throughout the state wherever video gaming terminals exist, not just in those communities that are lucky enough to have a casino, but rather more equitably spread across the state where everybody can benefit. I think perhaps most importantly, though, is it's the benefit to small business. Small business can't touch this marketplace. They have to have video gaming, distributed gaming in order to be able to do that. In Illinois, we estimate that 10,000 to 15,000 jobs were created as a result of the introduction of distributed gaming in Illinois. I can tell you, for example, at J&J Ventures, before video gaming, we were a company of about 40 employees. And we went into the mature market with video gaming. We're a company of 650 employees. So there's very clear job creation in this market, and we can coexist. It's better for your communities. It's better for the state. In Illinois, we tripled the amount of tax revenue to the state of Illinois over and above what casinos were able to create. So it's a win-win situation all around. We can all coexist. I think the most important thing we haven't touched on today, though, is the importance of having a proper regulated structure. We want to keep out bad actors out of this space. We want to be regulated. We want to be properly regulated by a robust and transparent regulatory structure. Everyone should be on equal footing. We should go through a licensure process where we're all on equal footing. This creates transparency, it creates accountability, and it creates auditability for the state. You will know exactly every penny that goes through a VGT. Adequate background checks to keep out bad actors. It encourages self-policing among the industry itself. These are very key elements to a proper and consumer protective oriented gaming system throughout your state. We do not want to have problem gaming. We do not want to have gamers under 21. It's very important that we properly police underage gaming and problem gaming. Through video gaming, properly regulated, you can achieve that goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Dylan Bishop. I too represent the Virginia VGT Gaming Coalition. I'll be very brief. I just want to offer 2 points of clarification. The first of which is particular to Senator Evans' question. I think there was a misunderstanding there. He asked about various payouts depending on the different locations. So what Senator Bell is proposing in Senate Bill 1407 is that VGTs would be able to be placed in ABC licensed bars and restaurants, ABC licensed retailers like convenience stores, truck stops, and also charitable gaming halls. The payout, regardless of where the VGT is located, under this proposal is at least 85%. Doesn't matter whether it's in a charitable gaming hall, a bar or restaurant, or a truck stop. Now, what we commonly see is in order for terminal operators to compete, they often raise to at least 90 to 92%. I think casinos on average are somewhere between 80 and 84% payouts for sake of comparison. However, the legislation is not yet passed, otherwise we wouldn't be here. You can require the payout to be whatever the legislature so desires, whether that's 90% or higher. Now, the second point of clarification I'd like to offer is to the gentleman, Mr. Soul's comments from the Innovation Group. I find it awfully charitable that he took time out of his day to be here and not be paid or not represent any particular entity. He said something that's somewhat disingenuous, that casino revenues have declined by 26% since 2012. Now, they had declined, but stayed relatively steady since the introduction of VGTs. They may have had a 5 or 6% decline over about 7 years' time. The market decline with casino revenues in Illinois came as a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I think in particular during fiscal year 19, gaming operations were suspended in Illinois, or casino gaming operations were suspended in Illinois beginning March 16th of 2020. That lasted through June 30th of 2020, and then again from November 19th of 2020 through January 14th of 2021. Now, there's also a 2021 update done by Illinois' equivalent of JLARC that directly attributes that stark loss in revenues to the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's a little disingenuous to say that that's as a result of VGT gaming and its introduction. And one more point of emphasis, I think Senator Bell is correct that the obligation of this body is to consider the outcome from the perspective of the Commonwealth as a whole. After the introduction of VGTs in Illinois, gross gaming revenues, including, so that's casino revenues and VGTs, the tax revenue that the state generates, increased 33.6% since 2012. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bishop. Mr. Hammond.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I promise to be brief. My name is Stephen Hammond, and I represent the Kuro Group. During the 12-month extension of Skill Games, Kuro entered into the Virginia market and invested about $3 million into gaming. And they wanted to create a premier gaming opportunity for their customer base. They partnered with convenience stores such as GPM Investments. And because of that, they contributed $4 million to the revenue of the Commonwealth. Their investment supported small businesses that struggled during the pandemic, affording them the opportunity to keep their doors open and added revenue generation from the games that they had in their stores. When the extension ended, Curl removed all of their games, and they left with hopes of one day coming and returning back to Virginia. We commend you all for doing the due diligence in order to discover the benefits of gaming, as well as finding any flaws that could be corrected by proper regulation in the state. Curl is not seeking to pick winners or losers. Simply put, we seek the opportunity to participate in a regulated gaming environment in order to offer the state safe entertainment for those that choose to participate, and to provide revenue to the Commonwealth of Virginia, especially in rural and urban areas that need it the most. I thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Senator Morrissey.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Senators Bell, Senators Ruff, and other members of the committee that are listening virtually. I am coming in support of Senator Bell's bill, and I think I have a bit of a unique perspective. My perspective doesn't make it better or superior to anybody else that has spoken, but it's just it's a different perspective. I think I have some familiarity with not only charitable gaming, but the regular gaming industry. In my Senate district, the 16th Senate district, we have several new gaming endeavors. Rosie's is right down from my district office, Rosie's Emporium, that's in the district. If the referendum passes in November, we will have a casino in my district. I have hundreds of C-stores and restaurants that had the skilled games, and I believe and I hope that they will have BGT games in the future. I represent a rural jurisdiction and an urban jurisdiction, including cities of Petersburg, Richmond, and Hopewell, rural jurisdictions like Dinwiddie, and I think there is any suggestion that there is not enough room for the VGT games, I think, is misplaced. Not unlike education, where there is a basket of public schools, private schools, parochial schools, charter schools, contract, homeschooling. The same exists, I think, in gaming. And given that I have a casino that will be coming, I believe, Rosie's that's there, I think there is not only ample room for the VGT industry, but I think it's a necessary place for them. And one of the things that I'm absolutely convinced of is that you have to have regulation. You have to have the enforcement arm there ahead of time. And one of the things, the takeaways that I came when I was in Illinois is how important and crucial that element was to the VGT industry and the casino industry in Illinois. They had that in place. They didn't bring the industry in, the VGT and the casinos, and then say, oh, let's enforce it. They had that in place there. And that's the last point that I want to make today. And I would like to, I don't want to trespass on too much of your time, but if I can just draw a parallel between when we don't have enforcement and how we have mischief than when we do have enforcement and it works well. And I'll also add this. 31 years ago, I was the Commonwealth Attorney and the elected Commonwealth Attorney in Richmond when we had bingo operations. And I think at Richmond at one time was the Epic Center there. And we realized very early on, if you don't have enforcement and regulation, you'll have an industry in disarray. I'd like to compare that with what we have right now. We have charitable gaming right now in Virginia and in Richmond. And it is not working because we don't have the enforcement there in place now. As you know, the enforcement is done by a myriad of agencies: Department of Agriculture, the Commonwealth attorneys, the city attorneys, the AG's office, and the enforcement is simply not there. Not because the Department of Agriculture isn't doing a good job, they're doing a great job with limited personnel, but they don't have that enforcement there now, so we're having charitable gaming that is run amok. For example, there were charitable poker was deemed lawful in Virginia, but we didn't set up the regulations or the permits. And the chairman of the charitable gaming operation said, well, let's go forward anyway. He didn't get his permits, so he sued. Didn't win in court. So he opened it up anyway. Opened it up anyway and said, well, because the General Assembly passed poker, charitable poker, well, then I can run it, even though we don't have it in place. And it is a disaster. It's an unparalleled disaster. I won't even get into the fact that that same individual who operates his own charitable poker is the chairman of the charitable gaming industry.
Senator Morrissey, I think that's for a different subcommittee that's also taking up this work, so not to bleed over into too much to our other colleagues' work today.
So if I could just leave you with this takeaway, that and I fully support Senator Bell's bill, but please, let's make sure that we have that enforcement arm in place beforehand as opposed to bringing it along afterwards. Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your time, and be happy to answer any questions that my colleagues might have.
Thank you, Senator Morrissey.
Thank you.
I do want to see if Mr. Soul is online, because I think there was a question earlier that I want to make sure was clarified. If the clerk, if you can identify he's online. The question was either representation or invite to present today, and I think that was important for the committee to understand. So I would defer to Mr. Soul to maybe provide a little bit more clarity to the statement earlier.
Well, yeah, so in response to the insinuation that I'm here out of the goodness of my heart, I was made aware of this session. I don't track everything in Virginia day by day by various operators in the industry, all of whom we have worked for, none of whom we are working for in Virginia. And we work for the state of Alaska, we work for the state of Virginia. When we do a study for a state, our forecasts are compared to the outcomes, and that is in our interest to make sure that what happens in the state is the same scenarios that we looked at. That's what the innovation group's interest is. I was involved in the state work and was asked by some of the operators who bid on those projects to take a view, and have not been retained or paid by anybody.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Soul. I appreciate sort of the clarity that you're not here on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia, although you've done work with various states in the past. You're here at the invitation of the casinos. So I appreciate that clarity and appreciate your presentation today. I want to make sure that that presentation is also distributed to the committee members. And so I believe the clerk has a copy of that as well, or we can get that so we can distribute all the information provided today.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that presentation is presently available on the meeting's website on the Interim Studies and Commissions listing webpage.
Great. Thank you very much. Senator Mason.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask Mr. Soul one question before he goes?
If he is still available online, absolutely. Go ahead, Senator Mason.
So we had the same conversation last meeting, and most certainly COVID had an enormous impact on the casinos. But Mr. Stoll just presented a chart that was from 2012 to 2019. And so if COVID started impacting them in 2019, 2012 to 2018 showed a decline in casino revenue, whether it's become VGTs or whatever it may be. Is that the timeline that I saw from your presentation, sir?
No, sir. The reason that we stopped in 2019 was explicitly to remove the impact of COVID. So it's a apples to apples comparison to what we would expect the recovery to look like after COVID.
Got it. So the decline, Mr. Chairman, I apologize.
Senator Mason, go ahead.
So the decline was from 2012 to 2019 prior to COVID impacting the data?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Other follow-up questions from the committee? I think Senator Morrissey has pointed out one thing that is important for the committee's consideration, which is the overall regulatory enforcement framework, whether a vehicle like this exists or not, and whether or not there's going to be a continued proliferation that rely upon the Commonwealth attorneys or other venues or to start to regulate and take into consideration, because I think there are pretty substantial feedback that there are still actors within the space across multiple arenas that are still sort of continuing to operate. So I think it's sort of an interesting context that Senator Morrissey proposes to this committee is ultimately how do we deal with the larger framework?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say on that real quick, I'm also a member of that subcommittee that's bipartisan and also bicameral that's looking at that right now that Delegate Paul Krizak chairs. And we are certainly looking at this and exploring enforcement, regulation, and the fact that the valid concern and pretty substantial evidence that's been brought to us that illegal gaming is going on today in the Commonwealth. So this is, I suspect there will be some legislative recommendations as an output of that. And Senator Morrissey, I can tell you we share your concerns and we have an equal appreciation for them. So thanks for bringing them up here.
Thank you, Senator Bell. Other discussion from committee members? Any online? All right, it's a quiet group today. Maybe it's absorbing all the information. Appreciate the testimony today. I think it was helpful to see various points of view, some various points of data, and you're spending time to advocate and be a voice today. So I appreciate many of the small business owners that joined us today and those who joined us online and the committee members. Our agenda is to set out for a final meeting for consideration of Senate Bill 1407. We'll be working on dates for those for likely late November, early December, and we'll be posting those notices as those become available. And the clerk is duly reminding me that if there is a vote, we will require an in-person quorum. So as we send those polling information dates out, the next meeting will be important that we do have membership in person to record a vote. So stay tuned for that. Again, the meeting materials will be available online, as the clerk indicated, and appreciate everyone's time today. And the committee will rise.